This is Maury of Yahusha, introducing the King above all kings, Yahusha Ha Mashayah. He warned us of impending doom if we begin to worship Baal and his consort, Yahu 24:15. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, 16, then let them which be in Yahuda flee into the mountains. Look at the images. I gave you 3 separate views. Do you see it? This is in the Holy of Holies, in Tel Arad, in the only standing temple in the Promised Land. This is the Temple of Solomon, the exact pattern that's in the book, the exact same pattern as in the tabernacle not made with hands in the heavens. Do you see the 2 pillars there? It stands for Baal and his consort, Asherah, Ashtaroth, Istra. Today, her new name for the Queen of Heaven, Mary. Let's begin. Yahu, you would say Matthew, chapter 24, 1-4. 1. And Yahusha went out and departed from the temple. What temple? Did you know that there were 2 standing temples when Yahusha was alive? The first one was in the south, in Tel Arad, the Temple of Solomon. And the second one was in the north, the Temple of Herod the Great. And his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. Why are they showing him the buildings of the temple? Is he a tourist? Doesn't he know the buildings of the temple? Not the one in the north. These were built by Herod the Great. Look at what he's going to say next. 2. And Yahusha said unto them, See you not all these things? Don't you see all of these buildings? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Did that prophecy come to pass? Yes. Not one stone is there. The place where people go to pray, and they call it Temple Mount, and they go to the wall, stick their partitions in the crack, is the wall of Fort Antonia, a Roman garrison. They're praying to the God of fortresses. 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us then, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the world? One of these people must be Brother Xavier. 4. And Yahusha answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. Look at his first instruction. The only way that a man can deceive you is if you do not test, try, and prove all things. The ball is in your court. 5. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Do you think he said that? Of course not. The sentence is ridiculous in translation. Why? Is Christ a name? Or is it a title? Well, it's obvious for the Europeans it's both. Because when you go to Strong's, you'll find that Christ is Christos. Christos is the sun god. He is the god of Constantine the Great. You know, the one who abolished the law. Hey, isn't that what Christ did? Christ abolished the law, and Yahusha Ha Mashayah established the law. You see the opposition? So Christ is the anti-Mashayah, the opposition, the one who's against. So if the Mashayah was speaking here, he wouldn't have said my name. He would have said something like this. For many shall come and say, I am the Mashayah, and deceive many. 6. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. This prophecy is dual in nature. It traverses through the centuries. He's speaking present and future tense. All of this will culminate in the end to the gathering. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. He told them that. But people kept saying he's coming soon. He'll be here tomorrow, the next day, any time now. But yet, the prophecy wasn't fulfilled. 7. For nation shall rise against nation. Yes, that's straight down through the centuries. Kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines, pestilences, earthquakes in different places. Listen what he says in 8. These are just the beginning of sorrows. You're just getting started. 9. Then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you. He's speaking to the apostles. They just asked him the questions, what shall be the sign of the end of the world. And listen what the Yahusha Ha Mashayah is telling them. You're going to die. And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Just like us. 10. And then shall many be offended. He didn't come to bring peace, but to bring a sword. And shall betray one another. Isn't that what you're going through with your family members today? How they feel about you because you're following the way? And shall hate one another. 11. And many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. Wow. He wasn't lying. Let me run you through the list so that you will know what a false prophet looks like. They'll tell you not to call upon the sacred name. They'll say things like Abba or Christ. Speaking of Christ, did you know that a Christian is a believer in Christ? So all of the people who call upon Christ, by definition, are Christians. And they're Catholic. What does Catholic mean? Universal Church of Jesus Christ. Here's another one. This is how you'll know if you're listening to a false prophet. He's going to tell you that Esau is the white man. That's impossible. He cannot be of the bloodline of Jacob, of Yitzhak, of Abraham, if he's Mr. White. Mr. White comes from the others. Then they'll tell you about a 13-tribe chart and say that the hominid species that are here in America are the lost 12 tribes or something like that. Stop it. They're not from the bloodline of men. They are not our brothers, and they are not related to us. Then they'll tell you the full moon is the new moon. It takes 14 days for the light to become full. Which one is day one? When light first shows up, and then it grows 14 days and becomes full, or when it becomes full and begins to wane. Many false prophets shall rise and deceive many. They'll tell you that Saturday on Pope Gregory's calendar goes to creation. Many false prophets shall rise and deceive many. They'll tell you that the rules of postponement should be used in order to find your feast. What is rules of postponement? Adding months to the calendar. Many false prophets shall rise and deceive many. They'll tell you something about a first new moon after an equinox. The moon falls behind, it does not go forth. Many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. Then they'll tell you about a 3-5-8 rule, meaning you'll make an adjustment on the third year, the second year, and the next third year. Many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. Then you have the ones who say you have to use a sundial in order to find your feast. That is totally against the scripture altogether. You can't even find any such thing. It tells you that the moon is the sign of feast, a light that wanes in its perfection. The only way to find Yah's days is through the moon. But many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. Then they'll tell you to use a solar calendar to find your feast. You have to bring it back to an equinox on Pope Gregory's calendar. Many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. They'll tell you that you have to get a mark in your hand or in your forehead. 666. Foolishness. Saying you're going to get an implant. People are waiting for this prophecy to come to pass. Many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. They don't even read the text. It tells you the mark, 1, the name, 2, and the number of the name, 3. You have to have all 3 points to come to a conclusion. What is the mark? 2 crossed swords in a palm tree. What is the name? In the name of Allah. What is the number of the name? It means the multitudes of the name, those who are circulating around the Kaaba, circumambulating around and around upon the Kaaba. This is what the prophet was looking at. Has nothing to do with 666 in your hand or in your forehead. Many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. Then they tell you that America is Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. The book tells you in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, that you're going to be taken into bondage. Egypt, Matzrayim, in ships. Not Babylon, the house of bondage. In ships. America is not Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. America doesn't have the history to be that. It just came about not to, 1776 is when America was established? So everything that these false prophets are telling you will all be lies. If only you would check, try, and prove these things, you would see. 12. And because iniquity shall abound. Iniquity, that is the practice of transgression of the law. The love of many shall wax cold. Of course. Because they're practicing lies and deceit. The love of the law shall be in the back burner. 13. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. How can we endure through all of this? Is it possible? This seems like mission impossible to me. How can you make it through all of this? Only through the Ruach. Now you know how to identify your brothers and your sisters. 14. And this gospel, look at the word in the Old English where gospel originates from. Godspell. You see, God put a spell on you in the New Testament. How did he do that? He gave you two thought processes, one his own and one that lines up with Torah and the prophets. Now you have to make a choice. So he put this spell on you. It's called witchcraft. What is the witchcraft? Christ abolished the law. But Yahusha Ha Mashayah, in the text, came to establish the law. So let's see, what is the word that should be there? And this law of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. This is our assignment, to spread this message to the world. If you're not doing that, you're not following instructions. 15. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, showed you that in the beginning. It's Baal worship. He was fighting against the same thing over and over and over again. This keeps happening. Well, when you see the woman in the holy place, 16, then let them which be in Yehuda, in the south, flee into the mountains. Why? Because the Father was going to remove his hand. He said, enough is enough. Now I remove my hand and let the Gentiles, or those who came from the north, annihilate you. 17. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Leave it there. 18. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Oh, I left my clothes on the clothesline. I have to go and collect them. You better leave them there. 19. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. You want to see what this looks like? Look in Gaza. A cold front came down. It brought the rains. They're slushing around in the mud. They're going through a great famine. There's disease everywhere. There's death everywhere. 20. But pray that your flight be not in the winter, like theirs are in Gaza right now, neither on the Shabbat day. 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be again. Great tribulation. The great tribulation he's speaking about is 70 AD, when the Romans came down with great slaughter. Why? When you therefore shall see the abomination that brings desolation standing in the holy place. You saw those pillars standing there, right? Flee into the mountains, because the Romans were going to come down with great slaughter. 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, the children of Yeshua, those days shall be shortened. He only works for one group, his people. Even though we forsook him, he still kept his eye on us and protected who? His elect. He has his chosen ones. Certain people left and were not touched. They made it over to the west coast of Africa, where they dwelt safely for approximately 12 or 1300 years. 23. Then if any man shall say unto you, look, there's the Mashayah, or there, don't you believe it. Just like everyone was believing that Yahweh ben Yahweh was the Mashayah. He said he was the Son of God. He was the one who would come. He was the king that is above all kings. 24. For there shall arise false Mashayahs, false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. The elect cannot be deceived. That's why you're here listening to me, instead of listening to the camp teachers. 25. Behold, I told you before. What did you tell us before, Master? 26. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, do not believe it. He doubled down on that. Yet they still went to Yahweh ben Yahweh. 27. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, he's going to tell you how his coming is going to be, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. It's going to be in a twinkling of an eye. He's not going to be born again, from a woman and grow up and become a man and then begin to teach. He's going to come in the twinkling of an eye. Where's he going to come to? 28. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. The carcass, speaking of death, the eagles are flying over it. Who are the eagles? The North Country. Who is their primary representative? America. What is the standard on top of the flag? The eagle. What was the standard on top of the pole when the Romans were there? The eagle. It happened before, and it's happening again now, right in front of your face, in the Promised Land, in Gaza, in Lebanon. 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. Now we're down to the last days. We're here now. This is about us. All of the rest of the prophecy has been fulfilled. Has this been fulfilled? Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall not give its light. Did you see this happen yet? And the stars shall fall from the heaven. Did you see that happen yet? And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Have you heard about anything like that? 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the heaven. Have you seen that? And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. Did you hear anything about that? And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Has anyone seen this? This will be the greatest event ever before in history. Everyone is going to behold it. Have you seen this happen yet? 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, a shupar. Have you heard the shupar yet? Have you seen his angels? And they shall gather together his elect, his chosen ones, the children of Yisrael, the Kedusha Yam, from the four corners of the earth, from one end of heaven to another. Did this happen yet? The answer is no. Here's my question. Who are the people who are in the land today? Well, they gave you an alternative view. The Son of Man, the Mashayah, didn't bring them in the land. God did. The owner, who is God. He said he owns the land, and he gave it to them through one of his eagles. the British, under the Balfour Agreement. Did you see anything here about an agreement signed with Lord Balfour to bring the people into the land? We've been tricked. We've been bamboozled. They've replaced us. But they're in the right place in history for judgment. There are people who are there, going to be a poster child for great judgment. Coming soon in a theater near you. Shalom.